Hello there. Tonight I'm going to talk to you about my thoughts on Waffle House, hanging out with other people, creative thinking, and maybe some other things. We'll see what we end up getting to. Just grab a jar of peanut butter or whatever snack you prefer and settle in. Let's get started. I like to go out, but not really with other people. Like seemingly everyone else on the planet, I'm an introvert, despite introverts supposedly only making up about 1/3 of the population, I think. Now, I'm not making a call out saying there are a lot of fake introverts out there. I just think it's weird that whenever I get asked if I'm more of an introvert and I say yes, that the hyperactive female that I've been trapped in a conversation with immediately starts reassuring me that it's okay and she's kind of introverted too. I don't think it's a bad thing. The fact that you feel the desire to make sure I know it's okay implies that on some level you think of it as a bad thing. I'm quite content with saying more words to the waiter/waitress than the other people I happen to be out to dinner with on any given night. Usually they're cooler and more fun anyway. I wish people would stop acting so panicked when there are lulls in a conversation. If I don't have anything to say, I don't talk. That's not really a bad thing. I think that's a normal thing. I think silence between two people has become unjustly demonized in our society. I found that someone content to just sit, someone who is comfortable in silence, that is someone worth talking to. You just have to give them the appropriate time to open up. I have a friend. They're the only friend I have who regularly reads books. We like to make a monthly trip up to a used bookstore. Usually it's the highlight of that month for me. When we hang out on these trips, there's a lot of time spent without conversation. We may have some vibey music playing during that car ride, but other than that, it's just silence. It's not that we're bored in each other's company, it's just that we are both content sharing space and enjoying each other's presence. When you've found someone with whom you can enjoy human company without the pressure of conversation, you've found what I just define as a friend. I traveled for the past year. Only recently this summer did I stop, but for the past year I've been up and down the eastern side of the US. I was in a different state each week, traveling frequently and resting little. It was not out of the ordinary for me to be awake for 20 or so hours straight at least one day out of the week. As you may expect, I spent a lot of time really tired. Now that my life is somewhat stable again, I can say I'd have a much harder time falling asleep on a bus full of people than I did a year ago. And that's not a bad thing. I'm happy having a bit of normalcy with where I rest my head. At least for now, I guess. I certainly spend a lot less time sleep-deprived now as opposed to then. I believe I mentioned Waffle House towards the start of this whole thing, and I swear I'll start talking about it soon. It's just, what I'm getting at with all this is two things. I like being around people without being expected to say much, and I also like being out late at night when I'm tired. These two desires can both be fulfilled with a late-night trip to Waffle House. Speaking of being tired, I'm fascinated with the mental state one slips into when deprived of sleep. Your mind feels strangely clear, and the world becomes so simple. But once you rest and return to a normal level, you can hardly remember those late-night revelations or what made them so clear and sane at the time. It feels like a halfway point, a middle ground between our rested selves and our dreams, like we're standing in a hall between two rooms, able to catch a sliver of each, but unable to comprehend the whole. If you're unfortunate enough not to live near a Waffle House, I'd recommend looking into the presence of a 24-hour diner in your area, of at least some kind. I did not have one in my hometown, and upon returning, knowing I would no longer have access to one, I knew it was time to move across the country. Waffle House and places like it are important. If you've not yet been to a 24-hour diner, do yourself the pleasure of going out and finding one. To the right person, it really can be something special. Allow me to try and explain the feeling. Imagine stepping into your kitchen at 1 a.m. You couldn't sleep. Now, there's no first date tomorrow or new job, anything really to make you stressed out. Tonight, it's just one of those nights. It's one of those nights you just can't sleep. When you were in bed, you got on your phone and checked for notifications you just knew wouldn't be there. You watched an hour-long video on YouTube without even realizing time had elapsed. You whittled away the night without really being conscious of the fact that it was being whittled. You just waited to feel tired. You waited for that feeling so you could sleep, but sleep didn't come. So you gave up. Now you're in the kitchen. You're pouring a cup of coffee you think is decaf. Some store-brand Eggos are toasting, but you're out of syrup. You're not hungry, you just need something to do. Have you ever had a night kind of like what I just described? Try to grab onto the feeling of that night, how you felt, what your thought processes looked like. If you can slip your hand in between the slippery folds of your brain and latch onto that feeling, then you on some level know the feeling of sitting in a Waffle House late at night. Rarely can I look back on a time I started a day intending to go to Waffle House. Waffle House happens to fill a space you just can't fill with anything else. When I'm at Waffle House, I just feel a sense of peace. I think because going to Waffle House is a rejection of my adult self. I shouldn't be here. I should be sleeping right now. Why should I be sleeping? Well, because I have to get up for work tomorrow. I shouldn't drink coffee right now. Well, why shouldn't I drink coffee? Because I need to sleep when I get back home, and coffee will prevent that. I shouldn't order a waffle. Why shouldn't I order a waffle? Well, because it's bad for me and it's spending money I really shouldn't be spending. These are all rational adult questions, and fairly rational answers. Do I ever ask these questions when I'm at Waffle House? No, I don't. Is that foolish of me? Yeah, I suppose it kind of is. But here's the thing, and bear with me, this is about to get fairly nonsensical. Me has never been to a Waffle House late at night. Me, in the sense of who is talking to you right now, has never existed for going to Waffle House late at night, just as the Waffle House me does not exist right now. Me is a different person at this time than me will become once me becomes sufficiently tired. Now, if that made little sense, I understand. It doesn't make much sense to me either. I mean, where am I even going with all of this? What is the purpose of it all? Let me attempt to focus in with a quote from a famous person that you probably know. Stephen King said in an interview on the topic of childhood, "We think in a different way as children. We tend to think around corners instead of straight lines." What does King mean by this? As children, we're not dumb. Our brains lack a little development, and our bank of memories has not yet grown to a point where we can apply appropriate context to everyday situations. However, we are still humans. When we're children, we're still smart. When presented with a problem, we intend to solve it. We're efficient problem solvers. Our solution is just childlike, I guess. Please allow me to elaborate. I think back to a time when I was younger. I didn't fully understand how money worked. I just knew that it was slips of paper that held value. I knew that my dad left every day to exchange his time for money, so that he in turn could exchange it for stuff he and our family wanted. That was about as far as my understanding of it went, and while this does not even scratch the surface of a full understanding of money, this left no room for further questioning in my childhood brain. While I had a limited knowledge, it all made sense. We went to McDonald's and the paper was exchanged for a Happy Meal. There was someone who took the money, and I got food. This understanding was forced into questioning when my parents discovered a little thing called Amazon. Now, we got a box at the door. It contained stuff my family wanted. I saw the stuff, but there had been no exchange of money. There was a delivery man, yes, but all he needed was a signature. No money traded hands. How did this work? Where did the money go? Who got the money, and how did they get it? So I asked my mom, and she told me that she paid for it on the computer. Now, here's something about me that I will admit. I never ask enough questions. After an initial question has sparked my interest, I tend to just try and solve it on my own. This has led to some blunders on my part due to being underinformed. This was the case with what I'm about to tell you, for I now knew that money was paid to the computer in some way. But how? So I looked at what I knew. I knew that money had to go to someone, and if that someone wasn't at the computer to take it, the money had to go to where that someone was. So how do you put money in a computer? I thought logically the only place for money to fit would have to be the CD drive. It pops out, you place the appropriate amount of bills inside, and then it folds back in. Okay, that all works in my head, but how does it then get where it needs to go? So I thought again, looking at what I, as a child, had experienced so far. My mother took my sister and I on trips to the bank to withdraw money fairly regularly. Back then, debit cards weren't quite so prevalent, I guess. My mother paid for all of her groceries in cash. We would drive up to a terminal at the bank, and my mother would request a sum. The tube would then deposit a canister full of the requested amount. 2 suckers would be present as well. My sister and I would fight over who got which color. Then, the canister would be shot back up into the bank with air pressure. Knowing this, I figured a similar system must lie inside of our computers. It's only logical, of course. How else would you pay for something from your computer? It stood to reason that underground there was a massive system of chutes, carrying canisters of money deposited through the CD drives of people's computers to various online retailers. In my head, with all that I knew at the time, it made sense. There were no more questions. I believed this, and I told other kids about it. They in turn believed it too. What else were we to think? With the knowledge we held at the time, it was the only logical explanation. In the end, I was the reason many of my friends' mothers discovered their computer's CD drives jammed with $5 bills. This little story from my past is an example of what I believe King is getting at in his quote. Kids do not yet know enough to draw straight lines from question to answer. As such, they have to take detours around the gaps in their knowledge, and in the end, often never even arrive at the answer at all. Instead, they come to totally different but fantastic solutions. Processing problems like a child makes for good creative thinking, and if we want to come up with good ideas for our art, we need to get back to that. We need to reconnect with our younger selves. So, how do we do that? The closest I've felt to the mind of my childhood self is when I'm up late at night. My brain is just different. I process things in a way a rational, awake version of me would cringe at. To put it simply, I have a hard time thinking straight. Let's focus on that phrase for a moment. Thinking straight. What's the alternative to thinking straight? Perhaps it's thinking in corners, like King said, or thinking like a child. Now, I'm pretty sure you see what I'm getting at, and I don't think it's a new idea. I think we've all heard someone tell us that they get their best ideas at night. The notion is pretty common. But have we ever wondered why that is? I hope so far I've adequately laid out why I think so. Fantastical ideas commonly come from the mind of a child. The reason behind this is they lack the full context for why things are the way they are. As such, they have to bend and break the pieces of knowledge that they do have to fit the question and provide an answer. The resulting conclusions are often these wonderful ideas a logically thinking adult would never arrive at. So we, as adults, if we hope to have our own childlike ideas, must then think like a child. This is a problem with two humps, as I see it. One, we have developed brains now. The growth we have experienced cannot regress. Two, we now have context. The knowledge that we lacked as children now bursts from our ears. As adults, we are overflowing with context, in comparison to the rudimentary tool set of knowledge we all had as children. While I don't think there is anything short of brain damage that we can do about that first hump, I think staying up and giving our brain a bit of that late-night fog is about as close as we can come to replicating the second hump. To reconnect with that wonderful MacGyver of a mind that we all once possessed. A mind that was capable of giving an answer to all the world's questions, with nothing but a grade school education. At this time, I'm going to start circling back to Waffle House. I love spending a thunderstorm in a Waffle House, with a bit of moon peeking through. I love slurping some diner sludge while listening to the pitter of the rain. It's all so comforting to me. Rain is washing down the glass. A song that you love but would never have thought to listen to on your own plays through a jukebox. It's also charming, and I don't even exactly know why. I like going to Waffle House at night. I like going with a friend who I know I don't have to talk to. I like relaxing in the silence between two people who just enjoy being in the proximity of each other. I like going to Waffle House, drinking bad coffee, and eating greasy food. I like the excitement of one of us breaking that silence with a wild, stupid, but amazing idea. Something neither of us would ever say if we weren't tired in a 24-hour diner. I think it's all kind of beautiful. Thank you very much for watching this all the way through. If you don't mind, I'm going to take advantage of your attention just a moment longer. You're free to click off if you're through. This has nothing to do with the topic of the video. I'm about to get on a pretentious soapbox, so honestly, I would recommend clicking off. All the same, I have something to say, and if you're willing to listen, I'll go ahead and start. I've been watching YouTube videos for as long as I can remember. They make up some of my earliest memories, and almost just as long as I've been watching YouTube videos, I've dreamed of making them. And now I have. I've made a video, but there's a problem. I'm not proud of it. The longer I worked on this, the less I liked it. This is a common problem for artists, I suppose. It's not just me. Now, if I were acting naturally for myself, I would not be uploading this at all. For I have a history. Whenever I begin a creative pursuit, I'll finish a project. I deem it not up to scratch, shelve it as simply practice, and go on to the next, deeming it as my first real project. I titled the script for this video, Getting Off My Butt and Doing It. And that's what I did. I don't like this video, and yet I still uploaded it. I'm through being stuck in an endless loop of practice projects. I don't like the end result, and so what? If I work hard, the next might be a little less distasteful to me. I finished this video, I uploaded it, and now I begin work on the next, in the hope that it will be better. Good night, and again, thank you for watching.